I have been with the city of Tucson now for, oh, let's see, 7, not quite 7, no. Oh, I can't remember how long I've been with the city, but I've been with Tucson Water since 2016, but around different departments in the city. So I did for this presentation, I added a little bit that it's all part of OneWater because Anne is correct. We are going through an update in our program on our planning, long range planning for the next 80 years. So what I'm hoping to do, if I can get this to advance now, is talk a little bit on the national and local scale about rainwater and stormwater, and is there a difference? And then exactly what is happening here at Tucson Water in our conservation and stormwater resource division. And then the city as a whole, and how does our OneWater fit in with what we're trying to do here at the city? So when we look at rainwater, stormwater on the national level and EPA, we see that EPA refers to stormwater, but when you look at what they talk about stormwater, we definitely see that some of it has to do with what I would consider stormwater when we talk about bioswales, green alley and streets. What they call planter boxes is really what we call our basins on the right-of-ways. And then of course the green parking and permeable paving. But they also talk about the downspout connection, which for us is the rainwater harvesting. And then of course the rainwater harvesting, and then green roofs, which is the precipitation, which hits first on rooftops and then trickles on down. What EPA also says is that in improving water quality, again, the reduced pollutants, that's really more about stormwater to me, and then reducing the high velocity runoff, again, that's a stormwater management. But when we talk about conserving the recycling and using captured rainwater, for me, that's what we think, or I think about rainwater harvesting. And in terms of strengthening the local economy, there's those reduced costs to the drain infrastructure. Again, that's the gray part of it. And then also damage from flooding, stormwater management. But again, they also refer to the green urban spaces and residential property. And to me, that's more about rainwater harvesting. And then enhancing the community, of course, capturing the rainwater for on-site use, and then reducing the potable water demand, which is what we're all about here at Tucson Water. So then when we look at our local literature, I believe way back when Evan and I presented to SCN about this manual. And in this manual, we do define rainwater as the precipitation that's falling and drops onto the rooftop, whereas stormwater is once it hits the ground and it starts moving, then that's stormwater. And while the impetus for creating this manual came out of what we call the WISP study, the City County Water and Wastewater Study, and the green infrastructure was an action item that was really addressing the potable water demand reduction. But we also recognize it as filling a vital need for the stormwater management. And then also right about at that time, the AzAPA or the MS4 was coming out and asking permit holders to look at LID practices as a pollutant reduction technique for stormwater management. So here, there almost seems to be an intermingling between stormwater and rainwater. From a legal standpoint, we see that federally, there is nothing that precludes any state from collecting rainwater. And so what it shows, for example, in Arizona, that it is legal and we can create funds for rainwater harvesting system. And then in states like Virginia, they actually have a bill that gives them tax credits for putting any kind of rainwater system within their property. And for them, it was to promote the use of rainwater to reduce the freshwater consumption, promote conservation, and reduce demand on water supplies, which, you know, for a while, I thought that was just in the Western states, but I guess the Eastern states are doing the same thing. And then, of course, we always looked at Colorado and their restrictions on how residents can collect rainwater. It's not that it's precluded that they cannot, but they actually can. It's just how much and how they use that water is restricted. All right, I know you all have seen this timeline before. I'm going to use it a little bit to talk about how we've sort of it developed here in Tucson, looking at rainwater and stormwater. So I'm saying pre-2010, which was when Tucson Water started the rainwater harvesting program, transportation had already been implementing green stormwater infrastructure. We here down in the Tucson Pima County area was implementing GSI projects. So some of the earlier projects for the transportation department was putting in the chicanes and medians and what was called the 8th and 9th Street project. There are 2 streets, I think 3 blocks long on each street. And this was funded by Neighborhood Reinvestment Grant that Pima County also gives out, as well as the Back to Basic Grant, which the Ward 6 council member contributed toward. And again, part of this was, and we were able to do this because of that action item in the WISP study that called out doing GSI for the demand management side. So, okay, so now we're getting to post 2010. So this is where mayor and council approve the conservation fee. And so this is really important because it's the conservation fee that pays for the rebate projects. And then also you'll see later on in the pilot project for the neighborhood stormwater projects. So in 2012, Tucson Water launches the rainwater harvesting rebate. So we call it, of course, the rainwater harvesting because we're trying to collect that precipitation off the rooftops mainly. And also, we're not really looking at public properties. This is mostly on private properties. And then in 2015, it was followed by the low income grant and loan program, but it essentially is the same program as the rainwater harvesting, but we're trying to put that equity issue into providing that rebate. So this is kind of a boring slide, but if you go to our conservation slide website right now, it kind of looks like this, kind of very boring. And our residential rainwater harvesting rebates are listed under the residential rebate and the low income conservation programs. So the rainwater harvesting program, it essentially was that a demand management side to reduce the potable water use, but it also pointed out that we were doing some stormwater management in terms of nuisance flooding. We are not doing the big flooding problems, just mostly nuisance flooding. We are updating our rainwater harvesting rebate right now. And so in some way, we have sort of defined the goal of the program, which we still are trying to capture that rainwater for that demand management, but we're calling it a functional water source. And you'll see why later on. And then also utilizing this rainwater to grow the landscape and the urban canopy. But the other thing that was also identified in that WISP study was to align regionally. And so that's what we're trying to do. Previously, when we have, or it's still up until July 1st, our calculator for the rainwater is for the annual rainwater for the year. So now we're trying to align with the regional retention requirement is to capture the first 1 inch of rainfall. So our calculator has changed to somewhat reflect that. All right, so here we are in 2016, and we have the pilot neighborhood scale stormwater harvesting program. And this was a pilot for 3 years, and the funding for that program is still coming out of conservation. And then what we were trying to do with that program is we bumped up the benefit side of it, and we're saying it's to address the multiple community benefits, including the traffic calming, urban heat island, reduction, walkability, but also we still are keeping in that nuisance stormwater management aspect. So again, both the rainwater from private property, but also the public property stormwater capture. So this 3-year pilot program was very successful. And so mayor and council chose to continue it on. And then in 2019, we now have a fee on our water utility bill. So the conservation fee is paid by all utility customers, and about 1/3 of our customers are outside the city proper. The green stormwater infrastructure fee is only within the city of Tucson. So our projects all only occur within the city, but we only collect from that group of customers. And then in 2021, the program was quite ramped up, and we're doing a great job. They have rebranded themselves as Storm to Shade. And this is the website where they are housed. They are, even though they're within Tucson Water, they are housed website-wise on the Climate Action Hub. And the Storm to Shade, they also are emphasizing how they're capturing the stormwater to support vegetation growth and nuisance flooding. So it's the benefit side of what's coming off the streets, and these are for public properties only. Rainwater harvesting is public and private properties, mostly private properties. All right, so one city, one team. How do we do this? I could only add 4 little icons, but there should be a 5th, which is housing and community development. So all these departments have different associated master plans, except for the Climate Action Hub, which comes out of the mayor's office. It has a program. So there's the Resilient Community, which is actually the Climate Action Plan, and then the Tucson Million Trees program, which I think Nicole Gillette is on this. She runs that program. And then we have an electric vehicles program, and then the Storm to Shade, and then the solar program. Plan Tucson right now is going through their update, hopefully ratified in 2025. And in the older Plan Tucson, there was a whole section about green stormwater infrastructure. So we'll see if that morphs into something different. Move Tucson is transportation department's plan, and that was already approved in 2021. And then this is where stormwater management for the city is housed. And then we have the OneWater 2100 master plan for the city of Tucson. And we're going through that, and it will provide the framework and our decision-making tools for the next 80 years. So I'm going to concentrate mostly on the OneWater 2100 master plan. So as Ann had mentioned earlier, Tucson Water has 5 water sources. There's the groundwater, recycled or reclaimed water, our surface water, which we are calling the CAP, or the Central Arizona Project Canal Project, as our surface water. And then what's not listed but probably falls under groundwater is our remediated groundwater, which is the Tucson Airport Remediation Project. And it also now is cleaning some of the PFAS and PFOS through that plant. And then the fifth one that was added in 2010 was the rainwater and stormwater. So in the past, when we talked about these 5 different types of water resources, so here we are in 2010, rainwater harvesting was added because that was our first program, the rainwater harvesting rebate program, where we were starting to collect the rainwater. We don't really know how big this line is because it's a non-metered source, but it's on there and we are banking on it as a water resource. Well, with the master plan, OneWater 2100 plan, we now see the same graph, but it's being called out as stormwater. So again, we're intermingling that word rainwater and stormwater, sort of collecting whatever falls from the sky. So when we talk about the OneWater concept, the changes nationally are that we are now looking at an integrated planning and management paradigm, that it is not looking at just the different silos of water resources. And then this transition also means that we're looking at resource management as a whole versus a service-oriented paradigm. When we look at our master plan 2100, we see that stormwater strategies are listed under the supply side. And it is looking at the potential for large-scale stormwater projects, but it's also to align the stormwater policies and practices regionally. So that's why in our rainwater harvesting update, rebate update, we are now saying, looking at the 1-inch rainfall versus the annual 12 inches that we did in the past. And then in the demand side, the incentive and strategies, it's still looking to see that opportunity of incentives for residential and commercial properties, which includes that rainwater harvesting program. So the short of it is it rainwater or stormwater? Well, it's one supply, it's both the same, it's both rainwater and stormwater. So it's all about that OneWater concept. We have a great conservation team. These are all the women and these are all the men on the conservation team. Not that I wanted to divide them separately, but the Zanjeros are a different team within themselves. They do all of our water audits and they're out there and they're the ones in the field and doing customer interface. And then the newest team, of course, is the Storm to Shade. They've ramped up quite a bit with maintenance and capital, and then Blue is the manager, and then Sotil is the public outreach person. But when we look at it, it's all one team, which is the Conservation and Stormwater Resource. So now we are labeled as the CSR team or division. And then I have to also need to add James as the administrator of this team, and Jessica and Diane are our administrative assistants who we couldn't do anything without because they help shuffle the paperwork all around. And we know what municipalities and paperwork can build up. So that's sort of the end of it all. And if you need more resources, we do have a desert dweller guide that kind of tells the history of all of this that I've sort of skimmed over, and then more. And then you can also go to the OneWater site. And if you wanted to take the survey also, you could do that, see where we are. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll get approval by mayor and council. And then by 2024, we'll start implementing some of the strategies.